Well, hello and welcome to So What's Your Story? I am so excited to be here today. I have some amazing guests in the studio with me. Or listen, I said in the studio with me, but they're here with me, right? They're here with me virtually. Virtually, I'm stumbling all over my words because this is going to be a great topic. But before we get into all that, I am Laquita Parks. I am the CEO and founder of PayPro Publishing. And pay pro V means pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there's no progress. And without progress, there can be no victory. So I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And we are here today to talk about, so what's your story? I believe 100% of everybody living and dead has a story. And somebody is waiting on the other end of your story so that they can get healing from their story. And listen, not every story is a trauma story, but not every story is a good story. But regardless as to what your story is, somebody is waiting on the other end of your story so that they can get healing from their story. And here's the thing, guys, they may not even know that it's your story that they're waiting for. Have you ever gotten up in the morning and you've kind of felt like, you said your prayers, you did your meditations, you did your routine, but you still kind of felt like, something's not, a feeling, you don't feel sick, you just kind of feel blah. And then you start going through your day and somebody will send you a message or somebody will send you a text message or you'll have a conversation with a friend or you'll read something, some type of inspiration. And then all of a sudden everything starts to open up and it's like, that's just what I needed. That's just what I needed. So somebody is waiting for you to give them that which they need. Okay. So today we are going to talk about behind closed doors. Y'all know a lot of things go on behind closed doors. We're going to talk about closed doors. We're going to talk about some necessary conversations and some things that happen that we don't want to talk about. The only time we can't heal from our stories are from the stories we don't share. And listen, there is nothing wrong with sharing your stories. I was telling a friend of mine the other day that I just felt like I want to cry. And they said, well, cry then. It's more room on the outside than there is on the inside. So just go ahead and cry. And you know what? I was holding it in because I was like, I was at the doctor's office and I was like, please, Lord, please don't let me fall out and break down in front of these people. Please let me get home. Let me get home. And I got home and I just felt so full, but then I wasn't able to cry just then because I needed to wrench it out. I needed to rent my clothes, as the Bible says. I just wasn't ready then. So I had to go to Bible study. I went to Bible study and then I came home and I ate my dinner and I got in the bed and then I was watching. I am, for those of you who know me, I'm a sarcastic humor type of person. I love sarcastic humor. And I was watching something and there was a scene and then there you go. The tears started to flow and they just started to flow and started to flow. And I ended up crying myself to sleep. But I felt better because there's more room on the outside than there is on the inside. So telling your story helps you to heal. There's more room on the outside than there is on the inside. So we're going to talk about behind closed doors. And so if you're listening to this message, if you're catching us live or if you'll catch the replay, I do want to say that there may be some things that might be mentioned that might be triggering to you. So I want to warn you of that. If it's triggering to you, keep talking about it. Find somebody you can trust and talk about it, but don't close it up. And so I also want to say for those of you who want to talk about it, but you can't talk about it, I understand that too. But here's the thing, there is more room on the outside than the inside. And once you unpack it, guess what? You don't ever have to pack it again. You don't have to repack it. All right. So we're going to go around and we're going to introduce ourselves. And, I have some amazing guests here who have done some amazing things and they are doing some great things in their lives. And some of my favorite people are on this screen today. I'm so excited, so excited. So we're going to start with Miss Sheila Ayler, who is a best-selling author, a new book. So I'm not going to say anything about it. Sheila, you go ahead and tell us about it. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell us about this best-selling book that I've kind of heard about.
All righty. Hello, everybody. My name is Sheila Ayler. I'm from Atlanta. I live in Brookhaven, Georgia. My book, Through the Eyes of a Child, came out on Father's Day. Father's Day for me was symbolic. It was symbolic because of what I endured growing up as a child. So um, I wanted to make sure that my story resonated with those who have walked in the same footsteps as myself. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. We're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to it. Miss Sharon, you're on mute.
Hello, hello, hello. It has definitely been a Thursday. I feel like it's a Monday, but good evening to everyone. My name is Sharon Denise. I am a Georgia Peach. And I also went to high school with Miss Laquita. So we're talking about over 30 years of love and friendship. I also used to work with Miss Sheila, so there's some history there. I am the author of Dreamer. Dreamer actually launched in 2020. Cute little book. Dreamer is a true story, and it's about a young African American young man that wanted to be a rapper, and his mother was just not hearing it, right? And so it talks about their relationship and how sometimes when you push someone to their dream, that you end up finding your own dream. And another sweet trick about Dreamer is if you get it, because it's on Amazon, there's a QR code. Dreamer actually has a theme song that was actually written and produced by Dreamer himself. So Dreamer is a real person. And so he is my son. And so that's all I'm going to tell you about that right there. Also recently, I was a part of an amazing, amazing project called The Women of the Waiting Room, the devotional. And I was able to write a testimony about what I've been waiting on God to do while I was in the waiting room. And so that one page is full of so many emotions. It's a roller coaster. It'll have you laughing, it'll have you crying, but that's what I do. When you take the lid off of Pandora's box, you never know what you're going to get. So I'm glad to be here, glad to have worked with Laquita, and looking forward to the future for many more projects.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Kimberly.
Hey. Hi, I'm Kimberly Reasonover, and I am from Ohio, but I've been here in Atlanta since 1995, so I guess that's official. I'm Georgia Peach, and I am excited to be here, and I think this is going to be a great conversation.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Cousin, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, happy Thursday. Hello, everyone. I am Deantrice Blake, and I too am a Georgia Peach. Laquita is my cousin, a few years older, but I am from the west side of Atlanta, and we went to high school together. And what else can I say? Just on this journey called life, loving it. I've been talking with Laquita about working on my story, publishing it. But for now, I want to share in the conversation and looking forward to it. So, hi.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Malcolm.
Malcolm J. Bowden. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was blessed with the opportunity to tell a snippet of my testimony in the best-selling book, Our Journey from Boys to Men. I met Laquita through Mr. Anthony Wallace, and just expecting greater things, greater opportunities. Currently working on my biography, Living Life Within a Cave, that God Be My Help will be out September 26th this year. Looking forward to this engaging in a great topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Malcolm. Don Martini.
Greetings, beautiful and fantastic souls. My name is Dom Martini Salim. I go by Martini and Dom to a few. I was born and partially raised in the Caribbean islands, and I've been in the U.S. since the late 80s. I am a combat veteran. I've traveled the world over and done a number of things, seen a number of things, worked in corporate, published author, one solo work and two collaborative work with the Laquita's publishing company. She's fantastic work, actually. Father, husband, and a slew of other things like podcast host, a slew of other things that I don't want to name right now. But I am very, very humbled and always thrilled to be invited to on these platforms with other beautiful and amazing beings to have this conversation. I love talking. If anybody knows me, I really love talking, but I don't talk just to talk. I talk with intention. And so I'm excited to hear and to engage in this conversation.
Thank you so much. I like what you said. You talk with intention. I like that. So I want to, looks like Kimberly fell off. She'll probably come back on. So let's get into the conversation. So there is, when I say behind closed doors, what are some of the things that you guys think about? And you can just chime in. It's no no rhyme or reason. I just asked when somebody's talking if you can mute so we won't have background. But when you hear behind closed doors, what do you think about? And I'm gonna just call out somebody. I'm gonna call out Sharon, and I always say Sharon. Sharon, when you hear and you participated in a behind closed doors discussion event that we had back in, I think, November of last year.
Right.
You shared your story, and it was amazing to me because you don't know people, and you never know what they've gone through. You can't look at a person and tell what they're going through or what they've gone through. So when we talk about behind closed doors, what do you think about?
Two things come to mind. In referencing what you just said, I used to attend Elizabeth Baptist Church, and Bishop Oliver used to always say, oftentimes we get made up and we get dressed up, but on the inside we're messed up and we're torn up. And so that's a perfect example of being behind closed doors. The second thing, I just recently turned 55. So I am from that era of what goes on in the house stays in the house. And so a lot of times, when we're wondering about triggers and trauma and drama, where did it come from? A lot of times it is just really deep rooted inside of us because we have been trained and we have been taught, like, not to talk about it, right? Even in the male society, men are taught to be strong, men are taught not to cry, and oftentimes men don't have trauma, and so then we get in these relationships about trauma. And ironically, I got my trauma, he got his trauma, and then we want to know why we're bumping heads, why the relationship isn't working. Well, it's really not a relationship, it's really a trauma bond. That's what we're doing. I'm feeding out for your pain and you feeding out for my pain. And we think because we both have pain that we have some type of commonality. And really, pain is not a commonality in the sense of why we should be together because you got pain and I have pain. So we just belong together. It's like, no. And so then where's the room for healing? Right. And so I think being behind closed doors is just that stuff, that thing that is rooted deep down in us. And then we want to know, well, why am I suffering from migraines? Why do I have high blood pressure? Why do I have diabetes? Why do I eat the way that I eat? Is that a comfort zone for me? Just eating bad food, that kind of thing. And so being behind closed doors is heavy. It is really, really heavy. And it can mean so many different things for so many different people. And what it means for me, Laquita, It may not mean the same thing for you. It may be something different for Miss Sheila. And so behind closed doors, I think is that dark space where we see a little bit of light, but it's so many things that's keeping us from opening those doors because society and environment and upbringing and bad habits has just taught us that, that's the safe place for us to be, is behind closed doors, and really is really not, is really not.
Yes. Yes, I can appreciate that because you're right. I came from that era too. Hey, whatever what go on in this house, stay in this house. Don't be going
Mhm.
telling our business, and you get real in some big trouble telling the business. And
Right.
it keeps you in a sea of you're ingesting it. You're taking it all in, and it's hiding and manifesting inside of you into all kinds of things. And then we kind of wonder what happened to why am I responding negatively to minor things.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that. Dion, cousin, when you think about behind closed doors, and we met, we knew we are cousins, but we were at an event a couple of months back, well, last year sometime, and I was on one side of the room, and I was like, and I think Dom, I think you know Johnny Brown. Do you remember Johnny Brown from Kroger? So we were at Johnny Brown's wife gave him a surprise birthday party. And so I was like, that lady, look, I said, cousin. We look like we're related. And so I went over to her and I said, is your grandmother? And she was like, you have the mouth. You related. We related. And so we're cousins. So our grandmothers were sisters. So we have been getting to know each other, and it's funny because we've been deep diving into some deep conversations and some family conversations. So it's been a beautiful thing. So when you hear about when you talk about or when you hear about behind closed doors, what does that mean to you? What does it mean for you?
Um, I think really when I think about it, I mean, it's kind of symbolic when you close the door. Like, in other words, we're going out to swim and I go and I close the door. So I'm closing myself off because I want to go change my clothes, right? And I don't want you to see me undressed or uncovered. And so when I think about behind closed doors, I think of whatever is lying behind it is something I don't want to be uncovered. I
Mhm.
think about guilt. I think about shame, something that will probably cause me to feel guilty or something I might be guilty about. Like, if, for instance, in my body. So guilt, shame, and condemnation really comes to mind when I think about behind closed doors. It's something that, we don't talk about, or I don't talk about. I really don't want you to know about. It's something I want to shield or hide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. I don't want you to judge me. So whatever, whether it's guilt, whatever, it's behind closed doors. I don't want to address that, and I don't want you to come at me at it. I like that too. Miss Sheila. So Miss Sheila, behind closed doors, in your book, talk about in your book, you unpack a lot in your book. So I want you to share what you think about behind closed doors, and how does it relate to through the eyes of a child? And so and tell us a little bit about through the eyes of a child.
I have to say that for me, is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You have all of these things, horrible things that you dealt with, whether in your childhood or adult life, and your condition, whether you condition yourself or those your loved ones condition you to pack all of that stuff up and push it in the closet and never expose any of it.
Mm-hmm.
In my book, I talk about growing up without my father in my household. I talk about how I felt that I was not accepted because of the color of my skin being darker than my other siblings. I talk about how I felt abandoned by my father when I would go through things where I needed him there for me. He was not there. And um, from all of that childhood trauma, it placed me in a position where I felt unworthy. I felt that I wasn't good enough to be loved by anyone. When I became an adult, I sought love from different individuals. Anyone that showed.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic, so it's gonna be some tears, and it's okay. It's all right. You're okay. This is a safe place.
I found myself becoming an adult becoming an adult, an adult, a child trapped inside an adult body. Found myself going through relationships after relationships that was not healthy. Bringing kids into the world with men who I knew they were not the type of men who I should have even engaged in with from the beginning, but it was all about me wanting someone to love me. And anyone that showed me attention, I felt, hey, this is what I didn't get from my father. So apparently this guy, he must really care about me. So yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I appreciate that. The book Through the Eyes of a Child, I like how you go through and you tell it's your story. It's your story. In the book, you start off with telling your story and your experiences. And then it's like it's three books in one. So you go through and you talk about your story. And so people get an understanding of who this author is. And then you tell about the standpoint of what was some of the dynamics with the relationship with your father, and then your children with their fathers. So, and then at the end of the book, you give some of the, I call them Sheila isms. Give those isms, and you talk about these are your thoughts and your opinions on raising children. And so it's heavy. It's a heavy subject. And because we become emotional, sometimes we avoid these topics. We don't want to talk about it, but it has to be. It has to be talked about. I'm going to go to Kimberly, and then I'm going to get to the guys because I'm interested in what you guys have to say, because there's the stigma, or sometimes it's like men don't understand because they don't go through it. So I want to talk to the guys for a minute. But Kimberly, when you hear closed doors, behind closed doors, what do you think about? What comes to mind for you?
It's interesting because every person who's just said something, I almost echo the same thing. And it is shame. Another thing I notice is that, or I've experienced, it's also protection. There are people who harm us and we love them and we feel the necessity to protect them. And so that kind of really doesn't give us it doesn't give us the forum to actually say what we feel, because we are told you got to protect the family. This is family business and no one wants to be viewed a particular way, so you have to protect the family. And I've even seen where people come out and the whole family turn on that person for telling the truth and for sharing their truth. And so I think that is a big mental block, and we carry it with us. And a lot of times it comes out in our lives and we don't even understand that that's where it's coming from. We don't get to the root of the problem. And so that's one of the things I think about when I think behind closed doors. It's not just you protecting yourself, or you can't come out yourself, but you have to protect others. a father or an aunt or a cousin,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and it just prevents us from actually to begin the healing process because we carry that responsibility.
Mm, mm. You touched on mental health, and I wanna visit that too. I'm gonna go to Dom and ask him what he thinks. Thank you, Kimberly.
Absolutely.
What do you think? And there's the what do you think when you hear men don't understand? They've not been through it. They don't understand. And even though we know that there are men who experience things happening behind closed doors, sometimes we don't, men are masculine, so they don't talk about it as much. So what do you think about when you hear behind closed doors? What does that mean to you?
One word comes to mind, and the word has just been literally floating in my head, and I can see it so that's as clear as day, and that word is
I'm
vulnerability.
sorry. I'm sorry, it sounds like you're muffled.
Mhm.
Can you hear? Hold on, let me put these things. Technology is not my greatest friend.
Okay, so until he comes back, Malcolm, same question for you. What do you when you hear about when you hear behind closed doors, what does that mean?
To me, there's two sides to that door: what's inside and what's on the outside. I would just share my personal experiences. Uh, Being the son of a preacher man and having a military mother, appearance and presentation is everything. So whatever I'm experiencing on the outside of the door, if it's uncomfortable, if it's troubling, if it's hurtful, because of the appearance and presentation, I don't feel comfortable discussing this on the other side of the door.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you go through years and experiences uh, keeping everything bottled in, and there's no outlet. So usually what happens is you try to figure out life for yourself, and there's really no safe place to go. And I'm only gonna talk about me. It comes to a point where in growing up and having no safe place to go and having no one to really be to or just talk to. It happens. A child brings a gun to school, shoots up the place, or a child tries to commit suicide. And my story is I tried to commit suicide, and thank be to God that it didn't work. So that's how I view it. What's on the inside of that door, and then what's on the outside, and they both kind of mimic each other.
Wow, wow, wow. I like that perspective. Dom, yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
Oh, all right. Yeah, Zoom was doing its best to stifle my greatness and everybody else's greatness in here, but it's all good. I'm here. The word that I wanted to that I was alluding to before I got kicked off was vulnerability. That's the word that I think about when I hear behind closed doors. And I want to say this, or I want to personally say this to Sheila. I don't know you from Can of Paint, but I want to applaud you and I commend your vulnerability because I think as melanated people, every complication or issue or everything that's seemingly keeping us disconnected or dysfunctional, if you want to say it, can be stemmed back or rooted back to slavery days. And so one of the things that was removed from us along with our beingness is our ability to be vulnerable, to literally be vulnerable, to see you as who you are. And so I wanted to tell you, again, I commend your vulnerability. It's very, very rare or seldom that, again, melanated people are able to be vulnerable because of, again, of our history, not only in this country, but in the world. So I wanted to tell you that. But yeah, vulnerability is the biggest thing that I could think of. And as a man, specifically as a boy growing up, I know that was one thing that changed for me because I'm not American by birth. I wasn't born here. I was born in the Caribbean island or outside of the American diaspora. And so for melanated people outside of America, it's a little bit different when it comes to vulnerability or our beingness. And so when I came here, the biggest culture shock that I got was, no, you don't cry, man up, toughen up. All the different stigmas that come with being a boy, a black boy at that. And it carried on into my adulthood where I didn't actually begin my healing journey until my early 30s. And it started with making peace with my father, a man who I hated for no reason, actually. He was there. He was a present father. He was active. He did all the things that a good father should do. And I still hated him. Because he never showed vulnerability. He wasn't vulnerable himself. He didn't know how to express his emotions, in a healthy way. I didn't hear my father tell me I love you, the words I love you, until I made peace with him and I healed with him. And so, yeah, vulnerability is the one word that I hear or I think of when I think of behind closed doors. So.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dom. Sheila, you had a question? I'm sorry, Sharon, you had a question. I see your hand up.
No, I didn't have a question. I also wanted to just kind of share with Sheila that I truly understand. It's been within the last 2 years that I had to deal with what I call little Sharon, right? Little Sharon had some issues. She had some concerns and she wanted so much to be daddy's girl, right? And due to the past, it was just this hurdle to kind of sort of get over. And in 2022, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And so now here I am, I have to take care of somebody that never took care of me, right? And then I thought that little Sharon thought, but this is my opportunity for him to love me. If I become his caretaker and I make sure the doctors treat him well and I make sure everything around him and he's comfortable, then he's going to love me. No, he did not, And so I had to come to grips with who I was and what my place was in his life. And though my mom and dad was married till the day she left, I had to still own that in a lot of ways, I was still a daddyless daughter. He was there in the flesh, but mentally and emotionally, we were totally disconnected. But I still gotta honor him because God said so. I got to take care of him because every time the doctors had a question, oh, ask my daughter. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe at somewhere in his heart, he has to trust me. In order to trust, does he have to love me? Like he's given me his whole life to take care of. I make all the decisions. And so I really had to deal with little Sharon because she still wanted to be daddy's little girl. And so once I went into therapy and had to heal her, because then I had to deal with the adult Sharon, because now you got to take care of this man. You got to talk to the doctors. You got to change your whole life because he has cancer. And so once I decided who I was in his life, I came to grips with a whole lot of things. I said, okay, I'm his caretaker, I'm his personal assistant, I'm his administrative assistant. And so once I found my place in his life, I just work it to my ability, and it was a hard journey because when they first said he had cancer, I was ready to bury that man. I was picking out a suit, thinking about a casket, where the funeral was going to be. And literally my son was like, yo, mommy, they didn't say the man was dying. They just said he had cancer. And I had to back that train up to try to understand, why am I trying to bury him so fast? When in actuality, I was trying to bury the pain that was attached to him.
That's good.
And so before I could care for him without resentment, I had to heal little Sharon because she was mad. She was angry.
She was big
but
mad.
Yeah, I was big mad, but I was vulnerable, right, Martini? I was vulnerable because I still wanted to be daddy's little girl, and he was still talking to me like I was crazy, and I'm like, bro, I'm taking care of you, and this is what you're gonna do to me? And so we had to get to a place where I know who I am and what I'm supposed to do, and then you just do what I tell you to do, that kind of thing. And so we're in a good place now. I know who he is, and I had to manage my expectations. That is so important. We place expectations on people, and when they don't meet our standards, then we're the ones left disappointed.
Right.
Stop
Absolutely.
expecting people to love you, because
To be
you know your
you.
worth.
To be
Yeah,
you.
you know your worth.
Mhm.
You know what you're worthy of. So you know your value. And if they can't meet you up here, don't even get mad about it. That's just not where God wants you to be. And that's female friendship, male friendship. There's kinship, cousins, some of them. Yeah, no, we're not doing that either. So when you accept who you are and where you are in that person's life, then be okay with that. Even if that means you're not even in their life, be okay with that,
Mhm.
because that's your peace.
Mhm.
And that's what I had to come to grips, to have peace with. My dad is who he is. He just turned 82. He's not going to change. And so either I'm going to be miserable taking care of him, or I'm going to find peace with what is, accept it, and manage my expectations when it comes to him. So now I no longer desire to be daddy's little girl. I just desire that he don't suffer while he has the cancer, and that we get through this together the best way we both can, because it's just not his healing journey, it was also my healing journey. And I think it was mostly about me than it was him. Maybe God, he was the vessel that God used. He chose as the toughest thing, the hardest thing, that he knew would challenge my faith and challenge my trust. And if I can forgive my dad, because my devotional is about forgiveness, it's about grace, and it's about deliverance, because we can't forget, right? So stop trying to forget. That whole forgive and forget thing, you're never going to forget it. But you got to give that person grace, and then you got to ask God to deliver you from it. And that's where you're going to find your healing and your peace.
Awesome, awesome.
Awesome.
I appreciate that, because we all have, and Dom, I just heard you had a daddy issue. And you were like, I hated him for no reason. You had a daddy issue. I had a daddy issue. And Dion and I were talking about this just the other day. We were talking about our dads who are cousins. Our dads are first cousins. And at some point, I am 50. I'm Sharon, you're older than me. Okay, you're older than me. So let the record show. Um, I will be there in October. So 55. You look good though, girl. You look good. But even I remember my dad being coming to town, and I'm like, okay, can you make time for me? Can you make time for me? Can you come over here? I was so excited. I wanted him to see my office and to see the publishing and to see these things, and he didn't make time for me. And it was always something, oh, we're going to be over here, we're going to be over there. But I wanted you to make time for me. And so the little Laquita, still almost at that time 52, still seeking approval from daddy. And the piece of it came when I confronted him and said, okay, listen, here it is. This is who I am. It doesn't make sense that I am 52 years old and I'm still seeking daddy's approval. And that's not my fault. That's your fault. And the breakthrough with him is that he acknowledged that. He didn't say, oh, well, no, you were wrong. He acknowledged it. And it means a world of difference when people acknowledge when they've hurt you. And so even when they don't acknowledge it, we still have to find a way to get from Malcolm behind those closed doors. Because once whatever's going on, it's still that same thing. What goes on in Vegas, stay in Vegas. What happens, at home, stays at home. But it's when you're able to fully be able to open up that door and come out of hiding, that's when that healing really starts. And that doesn't mean that you're shouting to the rooftop, whatever. It means that your breakthrough is for you, and you've got to get that breakthrough, because mental health is real. Your mental wellness is real. And as long as we keep it packed up, we can never heal. Now we can put a band-aid on it, but you know how companies come and kind of push things. Okay, I gotta push this over here. Well, you can only do that for so long before you start. First, you're tripping over it, then you're gonna start falling face down on it. So you have to clean it up. and at some point you have to clean it up so that it can never be dirtied again. So mental health is a real thing. So I want to ask Kimberly. Kimberly, you and I had an amazing conversation on Saturday, and I said to Kimberly, I said it is not by mistake that we're sitting here having this conversation. It was just the interesting way that it happened, and it came on the edge. Dion, on the conversation that you and I had when we went to lunch. Kimberly and I were having a similar conversation on Saturday. And so Kimberly, when and I'm not going to go through details of the conversation that we had, but when you talk about things that happen behind closed doors and you're blindsided by it,
Mhm.
how do you recover from that? Or is there recovery from it? Can you recover?
Yeah, I think that and thank you again for asking that question, but I do think that you can recover. I do think that we have to learn how to be patient with ourselves, right? Because it is a journey, and it unfolds. And as we mature, you know, you get a different perspective, and it's interesting that you say, we talk about the child in us versus the adulthood and the maturity, and there's an expectation of what maturity looks like. But when you can't get to that child, and when you can't heal that child, you know what I mean, those things they're gonna surface in different parts of your life. So I think that the thing that's necessary is, yes, you can heal. I think healing is a process. And I think that being patient and kind with ourselves is one of the first things we have to do, because as African Americans, we really have a hard time with understanding that, because that's perceived as being weak, or lazy, or is something like that. But when you're dealing with mental illness and you don't even know that you're dealing with mental illness, it can take you out. I heard the gentleman say about suicide, and the attempted suicide. And as a teenager, for like 5 years of my life, attempted suicide was a way of life. Like,
Mm,
I was trying like every other month to take myself out, and at one point was almost successful, and heard the EMS reviving me and was angry because they revived me.
wow.
And so the healing process literally did not take place until I was removed from what was causing that pain. I literally had to cut people off
Mm,
completely.
mm.
And then acknowledge what I went through, and the shame and the pain from it, and then that feeling of not being protected, or someone not being there. So again, to answer the question, yes, I absolutely believe that it's possible. I think that we have to be kind with ourselves, and I think we have to get past that fear of seeking help,
Mm.
reaching out, getting help, whatever it takes, meditation. But we have to go after it, but we do have to be patient with ourselves.
You know what? I like
Surround
that.
yourself by people who love you.
Yes, I like that because there is a stigma, especially in the African American community, that we don't seek counseling and therapy. You can't do that. And it goes back to what go on in our house. You don't go telling our business. And so
Exactly.
we miss out on healing because we don't talk about it. Now we talk about it, but it comes out in different ways. And so
Hmm.
when we don't have that opportunity to go and seek therapy from somebody who is trained in our area. So for me, I started seeing a therapist, and I fought it too. I was like, I'm not crazy. It's like, no, it's not crazy. I'm not, I'm not crazy. And depression is a real thing. It's
The
like,
real
no, I
thing.
don't want to be labeled as that. But
Hmm.
it is, but I've seen from myself being able to unpack some of the things that's going on with a person who specializes in medical trauma. So
Yes.
it's been a good thing for me, because unlike people who have gone through things and they can go through therapy and they can get over it, mine is medical. So I see my legs and my feet every single day. I have to walk and I have the pain, so I have to go to the doctor all the time. So there's no getting over it for me. There is no getting past it because it's constantly in my face. And there are a lot of people who don't understand that. So having somebody who is trained to help me navigate that has been a game changer, because now I don't accept those things that I accepted from somebody saying, "Oh, we're just, you just need to meditate and just, close your eyes and and think it away." And I'm like, that's, yeah, no, that, no, we're not, I'm not closed off to that. I'm good with meditating, but your issues are not my issues. So, and you can't do a cookie cutter. It's not cookie cutter. So I appreciate that you said that. Dion, I want to ask you, how does in the dynamics of behind closed doors and understanding that, my pain is my pain, but also understanding that there were people who attributed to my pain and contributed to the pain. How is that? How does that work for you and your mental health, being able to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to step away so that I can heal me. How does that work for you?
I think it's just as you said, like taking a reprieve, if that's a word, to say, you know what, I'm responsible for my own health, my emotional health, and I'm responsible to forgive you. Mm-hmm. So it's just recently, and I think that's the conversation you and I was having. Really, what the journey has looked like for me is to go ahead and confront the pain, confront the hurt, but remove myself from it. Okay, now that I've told you that you've offended me or you've done something wrong to me, now I understand that my corresponding action is also to forgive you, you know what I'm saying? However, but to remove myself for, I don't want you to continue to hurt me, or I don't want to continue to pacify the pain in your presence, so to speak. Or what I've also discovered is if that you're going to lie about it, if I confront you and you say, well, I didn't do that to you, or you're not going to acknowledge that you've done anything, then it's very necessary, I believe, for me to remove myself from your presence, because you're in a denial or self-denying state yourself. So that's what that looked like to me. And it's been therapeutic in a sense that if I can remove myself and just, go away for a moment here to process everything, now that I've told you what it was, what the offense was, or how you've offended me or hurt me or caused me pain. But if you're not willing to accept it, or you don't want to, apologize or accept it or receive it or whatever, then just to remove myself from it. Trust God, to go, that He'll bring me through. Because I think for me, it's just on a spiritual journey based upon your beliefs and your values. It's been very therapeutic for me to realize that if I have God's love, His love is just enough for me. When this was family members that have brought me pain or hurt, it's okay. It is okay. I can remove myself to the place where really basking in His presence and receiving His unconditional love for me. It has been definitely a healing.
You know what? You said something that was golden. You said, pacify my pain in your presence. And that's huge, because how often do we do that? How often do we do that? How often do we make ourselves small so that somebody else can feel big? Or we don't want to offend somebody who has hurt us. So I love that. I'm gonna have to borrow that. I am no longer interested in pacifying my pain in your presence, or period, in your presence or out of your presence. That's huge. That's healing. That's a journey. And that's like, hey, I'm on that road and there isn't anything that you can do. You can't take my healing away from me. So I'm not going to pacify you. I'm not going to make myself feel bad because I don't want you to feel bad when you were the one that hurt me. So I love that. Sheila, I want to go back to you, and then Malcolm, I have a question for you. So Sheila, in your book, Through the Eyes of a Child, And I know it's a lot to unpack. And I am a firm believer that the more you talk about your story and get it out, you're able to talk about it, and it becomes less and less emotional. And then you're more and more empowered to talk about your story. How has writing through the eyes of a child and sharing your story, and I've seen some amazing um reviews on your books, and so it's connecting with people, and there are some people who may not ever say anything, but you have some stuff in the book that's hard to hear and necessary, and it's not just hard to hear from the mother standpoint. You say some things to the fathers. So what has been the reception of that, and how has it armed you and empowered you in your healing?
When I tell you, I am so blown away with the emails or text messages from women who has walked in my shoes and who has um, dealt with pretty much the same issues I dealt with, from being fatherless to being violated, to just pretty much just a mirror of what I've gone through. And I it was so overwhelming for me because I wanted to tell my story, but at the same time I wanted to keep everything packed away in the closet and never revealing any of it because of the backlash that I knew I was going to get from not strangers and friends, but my own family members.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing others and how my book has touched the lives of others and allowed them to finally confess, whether to me or somebody else, that hey, me too, I went through the same thing, and because of your book now I'm able to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
That itself, I think, regardless of being on the bestseller or regardless of selling another book, that alone, just being able to touch one person who can open up and share their hurt, their pain, and release all of that they
Yo, yo,
had.
yo, yo. Hey, can somebody let me out this door, even though I got a badge?
Malcolm, can you mute yourself? Okay, I'm sorry, Sheila, go ahead.
So hearing their testimonies, all because of me standing up and writing my book, regardless of the backlash that I knew I was going to receive from my own family members. Um, I'm elated. I'm just so happy.
It's a beautiful thing, especially when because we had a lot of conversations, and so there were people that you were like, okay, you know what, I know this person's going to have a problem, and it was and it caused you to have some reluctance because of what they were going to say. And so we talked a lot about that. It's like, you know what, it's your story. It's your story. You have to tell your story, and it's your story. And even though somebody might say, well, I was there, my sister and I share the same mom, same dad, but our relationship with our moms were different. So when she passed away, it affected her differently than it affected me. You know, she and I remember posting something one day, and she said, I wish I would have had that relationship. And it wasn't so much that I had a great relationship. It was that I chose to only remember the parts I wanted to remember. Now there was some really rakey parts. There was some really icky parts, but for me at that time, it was beneficial for where I was to only hold on to that. Now I still had the other stuff, but that moment, and we have to take it moment by moment. I can't go over to tomorrow because it's not promised. So I'm super excited because as I share with you, there are some amazing things in there, and there are some things in there that people need to hear. And yes, sometimes the truth hurts. It's hard to hear. And it's a necessary conversation. So your book, if you haven't already purchased the book, if you're hearing me, if you haven't purchased the book, her book is available on Amazon. Go to Amazon and order the book, or reach out to Sheila and get your autographed copy. It is well worth the read. So thank you so much, Sheila. Malcolm, I want to ask you a question. So you, the son of a preacher man and a military mother. So it's like, man, you got one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. So I totally understand when you talk about outside appearances. There are some people who are all about appearances. Whatever, you got to have a fancy car, you got to have a fancy house, you got to always be manicured, you can't have one flaw. And they're the ones that's dealing with a whole lot of stuff behind closed doors. So growing up, I know in the book, Our Journey from Boys to Men, you mentioned about being bullied. How was that, knowing, you had two parents who were in leadership roles, and how was that life for you?
It was extremely challenging because what I'm experiencing outside of home, I have the presentation and appearance from my parents, and it's how can I say this? I have to live up to their expectation, and at the same time, I'm lost because of my experiences at school or outside of the home. Uh, I'm challenged because I don't stand head and shoulders above the rest. If anything, I stand shoulder to waist above the rest. And then where I grew up in, there wasn't a lot of Black people in general. So it was just a lot of, it was very trying, very testing, and difficult because, my father, he's a preacher, and it's like, well, I can't tell him this, that, and the other because he might just give me the Bible, and this is how I'm supposed to do this and that. But it's like it's a very uncomfortable because it's kind of like, well, I can't be vulnerable, and I just can't just open up. So then there's a expectation. Mm-hmm. So because of who and how my dad is and who and how my mother is, then I have to live up to that. And it's difficult when I'm already battling drama outside of home. Mm-hmm. And then I have to go to bed at night with the same fears, with the same shortcomings, with the same mental health issue and emotional damage. Mm-hmm. So
emotional damage.
Yes,
ma'am. Thank you, Malcolm. So Dom, men aren't supposed to cry. How do you navigate? And you work with young people. And young people can be emotional and full of drama. So how do you navigate your experience to help them get to a situation? Because do you have you still work with the teenagers or middle school?
I taught teenagers last year, but this year I'm gonna be middle schoolers again.
Middle school. And so they have a lot of they go through a lot. And they are a lot of times dealing with a lot of closed door conversations, closed door things. I remember working in doing an not after school program, doing a mentoring program, and having having a young lady, not after school program, doing a mentoring program, and having having a young lady, not after school program, mentoring program, and having having a young lady, not after mentoring program, and having Kevin, I don't know what's going on. It's replaying back my own voice. Kevin, I don't know what's going on. It's replaying back my own voice. Kevin, I don't know what's going on. This is interesting. You guys hear that?
Yeah,
Kevin,
we can
I don't
hear.
know what's going on. This is interesting. You guys hear that? Okay. All right. So that was really, really weird. So Zoom does not want us to be great, but that's okay. That's okay. What I was saying is there was a young lady. I was doing a mentoring program at a group home. And this particular day was every Monday. I would go every Monday. And this particular day, it seemed like we got finished faster. And I was okay with that because I was like, it was something coming up, Bad Girls Club. That's what it was. They were rushing to see the new episode of Bad Girls Club. So they were like, I was like, okay, I could not compete against Bad Girls Club. So not a problem. Fine. So as I'm getting ready to, wrap up, there was one young lady who was kind of hanging around. And I knew she had a baby. She must have been about 18, 19 years old. And I saw her and she was kind of helping. And I'm thinking, okay, she's helping, but she was moving purposefully slow. And so finally she asked me, she said, Miss Laquita, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And she said, what does it mean when somebody comes around your baby and your baby just starts crying, 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 crying? And I said, run like hell. I said, that's what it means. And so I said, what's going on? And so we sat down and she began to unpack, to tell me some things that was going on. And so she really wanted to talk because she said she felt like something was up with this person. And she said when she was younger, she was molested by her uncle. And so she said, and she went to school, and a teacher was the one that discovered because she said she had an odor and things of that nature. And she said, they arrested the uncle, but when it came time to go to court, her mom had been arrested because her mom was on substances and her mom had been arrested. So there was nobody to go to court with her. So the charges were dropped. So she said when she went home to visit from the group home this past week, which was why it was so fresh, she said her aunt and her grandmother, they made her go to church. And I'm thinking, why would they make you go to church? Well, the uncle was a preacher of this church, and the uncle also molested her mother. So this was the aunt's, so the mother's aunt's husband. And so she went on to tell me that she ran away from home. And then she got intertwined with other people, other men. She ended up having her first child when she was 13. And then she had another child. So this baby that she had, which was about a year old, was her third child. And so she was asking me, what do I do? And she wanted me to tell her it was okay for her not to go back to visit her aunt. And I was all for that. You don't have to go back to visit them. You don't have to go to church and sit there and listen to the person who violated you preach the word to you. You don't have to do that. And they made her feel like it was her fault. She was 12 years old. So the young people have so much to unpack. It comes out in different ways in their behavior. And so my question to you, Dom, is with, you hated your father, but you grew up in Haiti, and your father was in a leadership role there. And so when you have these young people come to you, they may not come to you and say, hey, I'm going through some things, but how are you able to say, okay, you know what, something's going on with Jacarius, something's going on, and then are you able to have a conversation, or hey man, what's going on? How do you navigate that with your own life? Because educators seem to, they it's hey, thank you for your service. That's all I can say.
Great question, because that's something that I actually ask myself on a daily basis. Monday through Friday, when I'm standing in front of these people's children, and I get home that day, and before I lay my head down on my pillow, I ask myself that because I'm actually an empath, an emotional empath, and what that means, if those don't know, I absorb other people's uncomfortable emotions. So if you're feeling anxious next to me, I'm gonna pick that up as if it's my own. Like I'm the one that's anxious as well. So we're both gonna be anxious. Mm-hmm. And so I've come to a place, and I've been learning how to cultivate that and that gift and navigate it and manage it and regulate it. And so now, if I know I'm feeling something uncomfortable, that is not mine, or there was no source for me to feel that, I tend to I have a method or strategy that I use to purge that emotion because it's not mine. It's someone else's. So I either move myself, or in that moment, if I can't, I know what to do. But with students, it's very challenging because students today aren't the same as students in our days. Their traumas are probably, and I know COVID amplified it by so many. I don't think you guys understand. Some of y'all probably do, those of you who have children. COVID amplified generational traumas, especially in the melanated community, maybe by three or four times. Like, it increased it really, really bad. And so the last year I taught high schoolers, which I thought was going to be a little bit more laid back, relaxed. Is actually even worse because they're adults living, still trying to figure themselves out as kids, and dealing with all the different traumas that they've come through or experienced themselves. But for me, the biggest thing I do is day one, when I'm standing in front of students, I'm as vulnerable as I can possibly be. Of course, withholding information that they need to know, but I let them know, hey, this is what happened. This is who I am. This is where I'm from. This is where I grew up. The very first thing that I show them is where I come from. The negative images of Haiti, the poverty, the destitution, the chaos, the extreme violence, all of this. I show them that. I say, hey, this is where I come from. And I tell them also, I said, don't get it twisted. This is also where I come from. I show them pictures of the beautiful culture, the beautiful food, the landscape, the history, what exactly Haiti did and represents in the African world. And so I'm very vulnerable with them from day one. And I open up to let them know, or to show them that I'm human first. I'm not a robot. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an instructor to guide you and direct you. No, I'm human first. So I'm going to connect with you as a human being first. And I let them know I teach them reciprocity, because that's something that's completely beginning to fade away in not only in our society, but just in general, especially with the youth. Reciprocity. I show you respect, you show me respect. I show you kindness, you show me kindness. I show you, when there's a break in that reciprocity, we have to repair that. And you were the cause of that, we have to repair that. And in order for this to continue, it has to be repaired. And so it's challenging for me. It's very challenging. Oh my gosh, there's some nights I've come home just broke down. And my wife's there holding me, trying to comfort me, but I've broken down because of how much these kids are dealing with and experiencing, and us as adults don't recognize, specifically Generation Z and Alpha. Those two generations are hopeless right now. And and I'm saying that in the most endearing way, because they're hopeless and they're looking to the older generations to help them, and there's a big disconnect.
Yeah.
And so it's challenging, very challenging, very challenging.
Yeah, I see that. I understand that with my own children. They are, I wrote an article in I Am magazine for this month, and it's I think it's my willingness to step back in order to move forward. And it's all about mothering adult children and having to learn to pivot from where we were to where we are, and understanding that they are a different generation. And hey, you got to know when to hold and when to fold and when to walk away, when to run. And so I think that I'm in the midst of doing this. Sheila, you know what I'm talking about. I'm in the midst of doing a little bit of running, and so they're not accustomed to my running. So there it's like, okay, my therapist is like, everybody on pins and needles, like, we're walking on eggshells, like what's going what's going on, what's going on. And so it's like, hey, let me take a step back and to move forward, because I like our relationship. We have a good relationship. But there are times when the pivot has happened and it's uncomfortable. So I'm like, listen, I got feelings, and you grown children not getting ready to keep hurting my feelings. So let me step back and let me do you. Let me let you be grown. And when you need me, I'm over here. Just don't wait too long to need me, because the tides change quickly. They'd be like, what mama used to be, well, you used to. And I'm like, okay. So it's a whole different ball game. So and I'm like, adult children, man, dreamer. I mean, good Lord. We going through that. I'm like, is it just me? But I've talked to several people, and it's not just me. It's not just me. It's the dynamics. It's the generation. It's like, hey, I can imagine now what our parents said.
Yeah, I think it's society. I think social media, the entitlement, and what I call the audacity. You have
Oh,
the
mitigated gall. That's what I
audacity.
call it. The
You have
mitigated
the
gall.
audacity to tell me what to do with my money for you, what I should give you, or what I should do for you. And it was like, yo, I don't think you know me. And so now that I just recently had a birthday, my thing is, I said, I'm not the same person I was 3 weeks ago. I've,
Right.
I've changed, right? So you're gonna get a little bit of that. And so now his approach with me sometimes, uh, can I just talk to my mommy? I don't want to talk to the life coach. I don't want to talk to the mediator. I don't even want to talk to the author. I just want to talk to my mom. And I look at the clock. I was like, no, she's not available today. She's not available.
Right. This is
What do you
what you
mean? You're
get.
supposed to always be available. I said, says who? Who says I'm supposed to be available? But he feels like his birth certificate is this lifelong contract. I'm just like, really? Like, are you really saying that? But yeah, it's this whole social media world. It's just and things that they think they're doing. Like he's all now he want the big headphones, right? And I was like, bro, I wore those a long time ago. Like y'all just got different colors now, but we had the headphones like way back in the day. Like, you're not doing anything different,
Yeah, if it's
like
new, somebody said if it's new, it ain't true. If it's old, it's already been told.
right.
So I wanna
Exactly.
I wanna ask, I want to go around and ask everybody. We're gonna get ready to wrap up. This has been a really, really great conversation, and I want to encourage you to continue to have the conversation, to continue to have it in your friendships, in your communities. Continue to have the conversation because we cannot heal from things we don't share. Because there's somebody going through what we've been through. So we've overcome it. We're on the other side of it. They are not. They don't even know that they can. They're going, but they're stopping. And so it's like, okay, I'm in hell. Well, if you're in hell, don't stop. Keep going. Don't go, don't stop in hell. You got to keep going because they don't realize that on the other side is through. So we have to keep having these conversations and they're uncomfortable. They hurt. You're going to get some backlash. That's inevitable, but you have to keep going. I'm so proud of Sheila. You told your story. That's your story. And I always say, hey, that's your story. If they won't tell this story, tell them, tell it. Write their own book.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
Write
gonna
their own
lose some
book. Tell
people.
their own story. You're gonna lose some
You're
people.
gonna
But
lose
that's
some
okay.
people.
They weren't meant to be kept.
You're gonna gain some people. And I think kinship is one of the worst ships to be on. But you gotta overthrow some people off that ship too,
But
right?
here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I think about kinships, when I think about that, those are ships that we didn't get a choice in.
Mhm.
Because when you think about it, there are the people, a lot of the people that are causing the issues, are they somebody that you would have chosen to be a part of your family anyway? I'm just for real.
Right.
I wouldn't have chosen them. So my relationships and my kinships become the people that I chose, the people who are my friends, the people who are there for me. Because those are the ones that when you call, they say yes without any commentation. You got a commentation here, you got to do a commentary, but they say yes. But then when the kinships, you when things are going good, they right there. They want to benefit from the accolades, but when things are not good, you can't find them. You cannot find them. So those are people that I would not have chosen. I mean, I look back at some of my relatives, mama side and daddy side, and I'd be like, I,
Yeah.
it wasn't my choice. It wasn't my choice.
Right.
But now at 54 and a half years old, I get to choose. And so now I understand what that choice means because I can choose me and be okay with not choosing you and be okay with however you feel about it. Okay,
Right. I think
that's fine.
I think Iyanla said it best when she said, you can't tell people how to love you, but you do get to choose to participate in the way that they love.
That's
And
right.
if you don't like the way that they love you, then don't engage with them. Don't participate with them. I don't care who they are. I got some cousins right now that think I'm just straight crazy. And I'm just so okay with being the crazy person in your story. I'll be the clown. I'll be the villain. I'll be whatever you want me to be. As long as it keep you over there and I'm over here. I'll be whatever you need me to be. But I got peace over here. You
Mhm.
in pieces. And I'm over
Yeah.
here with
That's
peace.
good. That's
Mhm.
good.
Piece versus the pieces. I love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question. So what do you do for your healing? You have all of these things. There's still, and I know some of us we still have some things behind closed doors because we've not gotten to the point where we can unpack it yet. And maybe we tried to unpack it and it's been too hard. And so we kind of close the lid back on. We're not ready yet. And that's okay. But what do you get? Where is your peace? Dom, you come home from a stressful day with children. I worked in the school system. It's worse than working for Kroger. Let me not say. Kroger was good. Kroger was good. But how do you maintain or how do you get your healing so that you can move forward? Because you got to move the needle. So you either stay in one place or you move the needle. So what do you do? And I'm going to start with you, Sheila. What do you do to move that needle in your life so that you're not stuck?
I keep reminding myself when I feel like I'm getting to that point where I'm going backwards and not moving forward with my past trauma. I keep reminding myself that God knew me before I was formed. So I am somebody, despite what I went through, what I was made to believe. But I am somebody, and God has a purpose for me in life. So continue to look forward and not backwards.
I love that. I used to tell my kids, my mentees, we used to say this thing. I used to give everybody a mirror, and I have one right here. And I would look in the mirror and say, I love myself. I love myself. And so in saying it, I love myself, you kind of say it passively. And then you have to get to the point where you're looking in the mirror and say, oh girl, I love my hair. So I say I love my hair, right? I love myself because I'm starting to embrace me and my hair is a part of me. So I have to love the skin that I'm in. I can't love the skin that you're in, and you can't do it for me because we all have something different. So I have to love me how I am, how I was created. And just what you said, Sheila, God knew me before I knew me. And God don't make no junk. None. And he made us on purpose. We were on purpose. Dion, what about you? What do you do for your peace so that you won't stay stuck?
I think it's just actually it's as you're describing, just really showing myself unconditional love. Someone said earlier, I think Kimberly was it? She said being patient with myself, understanding that, we are part of his greater plan, his greater will. And in time, patience is a fruit of the spirit, really clothing myself and putting on the word. Jesus said it best. Man don't live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So God is love. And when we embrace and become rooted and grounded in his love, that is the healing force. God is a healer, right?
Yeah.
And love, his unconditional love and his grace is that healing force. And so really just immersing myself in it and letting it shower me. Sometimes when I can't do anything else, thanking him tremendously for the life that he has given me and trusting and believe that he who started this good work, he is completed in me.
Yes. All right, girl, you're gonna preach in a minute. I love it. I love it. Kimberly, you're on mute.
There we go. There we go. This is interesting. So when you said you looked yourself in the mirror and say that, and when I was younger, and I kind of shared with you some of the things that I went through, but I met this guy, and he was very, very good. Well, he was an instructor and a counselor, and he talked about affirmations. And so the affirmation that he gave me, and I must have been like 18, and I still use it. And in the morning, I start with my praise and worship. Let me just get that in there. That's not an option for me in the morning. Okay. I have a couple of songs that I wake up to. and it's not an option. It's just as important as drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
My affirmation is I love myself no matter what. I love myself in the presence of others, and my presence is naturally pleasing to myself and to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it so much that now it's just a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we talk about unconditional love, but unconditional forgiveness, right? And I had to do that because I was waiting for my mom. I was waiting for other people to understand what I was going through and to ask me, forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to say, I don't have to forget, but I can forgive.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started changing my perception of that person. And someone else said that. I made up my mind that, and I did it, like I actually got a piece of paper and I wrote about the things that I liked about the person and the things that I didn't like. And I started marking off the things that I didn't like. So when I said, and I'll use my mom as an example. So when I said my mom, there was a time that I would associate all the things she did bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that triggers something. It actually is, it's a scientific fact that chemicals are released based on things that we think, which is what God says when it says, what comes out of your mouth,
Mhm.
So I started changing. And so now when I think of my mom, I've made a decision that when I hear mom, I hear she supported me.
Mm-hmm.
She loved me the best that she could. Changing my perspective because my mom's mom died when she gave birth to her. And so she was raised by brothers who was criminals pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And she did the best that she could. And so I changed my perspective and tried to understand what was it that that kept her from forgiving me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to forgive her from that perspective. You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to take yourself out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the forgiveness, it comes from God. It's a gift, but you have to engage it. It's just not just going to happen. It's something that you work through every single day, and it's making a choice to be happy,
I love
making
it.
a choice to be in control of how happy I am. I don't allow other people to make me happy. What they do can initiate a happy feeling, but I'm responsible for my happiness. And
Absolutely.
so I kind of hold on to that as much as possible. Those affirmations are huge.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Malcolm, what do you do? What's your piece? And we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. Thank you. Kevin has been amazing, amazing. And you guys put your information in the chat so you guys can connect with each other. Um, Connect, collaborate. We have your Dreamer has a book, Sharon has a book, Sheila, Through the Eyes of a Child, Dreamer, and then of course our Journey from Boys to Men, Malcolm and Don Martini are in that book, and Kevin Vaughn are also in that book. So, connect with each other and support each other in whatever you guys are doing. Malcolm, how do you what's your piece?
Well, first of all, definitely casting all my cares upon God because He cares for me, uh, and just taking all of my flaws and insecurities to Him definitely helps me maintain my self-confidence and builds me up. The other things that I'm a servant and I'm a giver and I'm very compassionate. So what I would do, I'll do inspirational videos that if it empowers, uplifts, encourages one person, to God be the glory. And in helping and serving others uh builds me up as well. Um I use I've learned to use my pain and my past to progress into my purpose. And there's a comfortability about that no matter what my past looked like or no matter what had already happened, that I'm pushing towards not just the present, but the future. And it's not always about, me. I'm very giving of myself. Uh, I'll journal, uh, I'll read, and I'll do volunteer services, uh, just to just to take the cares of this world off of me. So that's how I busy myself. I don't like to be alone. I don't like to isolate myself because then your mind start playing tricks on you. But so what I do is I definitely think about how I can continue to give and support others. In turn, it builds me up. So that's what I do.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Sharon, and then we'll end it with Dom Martini. What's your piece? What do you do for your piece?
Well, one of the things that I do daily before my feet even touch the floor, I have to declare and decree. I kind of start speaking over my day, speaking over my morning, no matter whether I had a good night or a bad night. I think the situation with my dad, again, has just taught me to be patient with people. Um, by day, I work with a lot of seniors, and so sometimes just hearing their story. And so that kind of led to the whole forgive, grace, and deliverance. And so I too had to understand my dad's childhood. He didn't grow up with his mom. And so I had to give him grace because he may not know how to treat women, right? He was never taught. He was raised by his sister, and you got a child raising a child. And so she gave him everything he wants. So he was raised to be a master manipulator. So I accept him for who he is. And so I place no expectations on him. And so that's what I do in general with people. I don't place any expectations, and I give people grace. And I literally sometimes have to tell myself, okay, what happened in their childhood that they acted a fool, because something had to get you here, and so I've just learned to say whatever that thing is not about me, and that God is just using me in that space. And I've learned just you're not going to get an apology. Like there are so many apologies I feel like I'm owed, but I know I'm never going to get those apologies. And so once you accept it, because the hardest thing to do is to forgive someone that has never asked for forgiveness, they've never apologized. And so then you say to yourself, but I got to forgive them. And then you have to understand that the forgiveness is for you, right? And so once I forgive, I give grace, and then I ask God to deliver me from the situation. And so what I will also say to Sheila, you see how I can tell this story and not cry? But there was a time when I just, oh my daddy, and I would just burst out into tears, right? So now, girl, that joker will be okay, and I'm gonna be okay too. And so my piece is just letting people be who they are. I can't change them. My cousins are my cousins. We got the same bloodline, and I question that sometime, and that's where I get in trouble with God, because I know I'm not supposed to ask God questions, but I be like, God, come here just for 1 minute. You sure that one right there some kin to me? But hey, we can't change them, and then I have to know their purpose in life too, right? Because the enemy has a job to do. The enemy kill, steal, and destroy. The enemy has a job to do. And so when these things and these attacks come up against you, they're doing what they're supposed to do. You just got to remember to do what God told you to do.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen and amen. Don Martini, what's your piece?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, when the little sweet baby children keep getting on your nerves. What's your piece?
Music.
Music.
I'm a musician as well. I play 3 different instruments. I'm picking up a 4th. And so for me, music, I know they say if math is the language of the universe, then music is the heartbeat of it. And another quote that I love, music is life, because if it wasn't, your heart wouldn't beat. And so I incorporate music in every single thing I do when it comes to not only my profession as an educator, but just in my life. These little devices, they call them smartphones. I don't know how smart they are, but anyways, anywhere I am with them, I got music on. If I'm in the Walmart shopping, it's in my back pocket with some music. And when I say music, anything that's uplifting, old school, Motown, the '60s, the '50s, the '40s, when music was really music. I don't know what music is today, but I'll leave that for another conversation. But also going back to what Sharon as well as Sister Kimberly said, I was listening to them share their piece, and when they were sharing it, I was thinking of a quote that I love by the late Earl Simmons, aka DMX, rest in power. He says, "Always trust everyone to be themselves, but trust in the fact that you can see them well." And a lot of people didn't understand what he meant by that, and so he broke it down. He said, "Trust a snake to be a snake, trust a thief to be a thief, but trust in the fact that you can see them very well and be at peace with knowing who they are and how to maneuver and how to live in your peace, and give them grace and accept them for exactly who they are. Like, you know what I mean? And not to stress about wanting them to change or be different. That's it. They're on their journey. And so, yeah, that's how I am too. I let you be exactly who you are. If what you are or who you are is taking from me or what's the word, extracting from my life, you need to do that with someone else, not me. If what you're doing, if who you are is adding to me and adding value to my life, I'm going to reciprocate it. You're welcome. You're my tribe. You're my kinfolk. So yeah, that's my piece, music, and keeping your distance if you got something else going on in your life. So.
But thank you so much. I love it, because if it walk like a duck, talk like a duck, it ain't a cat. It's a duck. Ain't a cat. It ain't me. It ain't walking like a duck and quacking like a duck, and it's meowing. So I like that. You got to trust what you see. And it is what it is. It is what it is. I have a good friend that says it is what it is. It can't be what it ain't. That's all it's going to be. So take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. That's it. That's the end of the story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you guys so much. It has been a pleasure. Listen, if you are tuning in, even if you're catching the replay, have the conversations behind closed doors. Have the conversations. They are uncomfortable, but have the conversations. And listen, we're living in different times. That's what somebody say. We're living in different times. We are. Times are always changing. We're living in a different time from our parents. They lived in a different time from their grandparents. So we have things, and it's like, okay, there's nothing new under under the sun, but things are so easily accessed. So you can see things happen at the same time that they're happening. They got people filming crimes as they happen and not doing anything. And I'm always like, well, who holding the camera? So we have to go through and understand that we are all human beings and conversations have to be had. We are no longer living in a behind closed door situation. We have to talk about those things because healing has to happen. Because if we don't heal, we will continue to be a broken nation, a broken people, broken individuals. So we have to do what we have to do to have those stories. And I am responsible for healing me, because once I heal me, then it's going to be easier for me to talk to you and help you heal. I can show you what I did, but we each have to do our own work. Okay. So with that being said, behind closed doors, continue to have the necessary conversations. And I want to say thank you, Sheila and Dion and Kimberly and Malcolm and Sharon and Don Martini. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being so open to share. Sheila, keep sharing your story. I don't care if nobody hears it. Share your story. Create, and that's for all of us. Create platforms to share your story. I'm all about the story. So because I truly believe 100% of everybody living and dead has a story. And so you can share your story because your story has the power to help somebody else. So if there is anything I can do to help you take your story from a thought to a realization, reach out to me. I'm at payprovipublishing.com. That's PAPROVI publishing.com. And I'll tell anybody it is possible. Is it easy? It isn't easy. Sheila, you know that. Sheila knows it's not easy. Don Martini knows it's not easy. Malcolm knows it's not easy. Sharon knows it's not easy, but it's worth it. It is definitely worth it because you get it from the inside of you and get it out, and then you connect with people who you will see heal. Because you know how you're gonna know? They're gonna tell you. They're gonna share with you, your story helped me. What you went through, I went through. So you got to tell your stories. And again, not everybody's story is a trauma story, but tell your story. Okay. So it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it until the next time. This has been So What's Your Story? 100%. Everybody living and dead has a story. I want to know, what's your story? All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kevin Vaughn. Listen, go pick up Through the Eyes of a Child, available on Amazon by Sheila Ayler. Pick up Dreamer, available on Amazon by Sharon Denise Smith. Pick up Our Journey from Boys to Men, available on through PayPro Publishing and through Don Martini and Malcolm Bowden and Kevin Vaughn. Get your autographed copies. Okay. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great evening. Be safe. Be good. And listen, and what the lady say, if you can't be good, don't you dare go mess up nobody's day. If you can't, whatever. I know she got that copyrighted. If she don't, a trademark. So
Yes,
be
Tabitha
good.
Brown. She said, "You
Tabitha
have a
Brown,
good
that's it.
day. And if you can't have a good day,
Don't
don't
you
go
dare go
messing
mess
up
up nobody else.
nobody
So I'm
else's."
gonna say, go be good. Be good. Be good. Be great. Unpack and don't pack it back up. All right. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm so glad you guys got a chance to come on.
Hey.